Motivation isn't always about hype, cheers, or temporary bursts of energy. Real motivation is raw, it's messy, and it demands honesty. Two, often people only hear the polished version of success. But the truth is motivation hides in struggle, in discipline, and in the moments when no one is watching. Ray Lewis shows us that motivation isn't about feeling good. It's about doing what must be done, no matter the cost. Today, we uncover the 5 truths about motivation. No one tells you truths that will shift the way you chase your goals and how you live every single day. Motivation fades. Discipline sustains. That is a truth most people never want to accept because the world constantly sells the illusion that if you just stay motivated, everything will fall into place. But that is a lie that keeps people trapped in cycles of excitement followed by disappointment. Because motivation is a feeling, and feelings change with the weather. They come and go with circumstances, with energy levels, with mood swings, with whether someone praised you today or criticized you. But discipline does not care how you feel. Discipline does not need a spark of inspiration. Discipline is the anchor you put down in the ground that keeps you steady when the storms of life try to move you off course. And if you want to become great at anything, whether it is building a business, training your body, or mastering your craft, you must understand that your future is not built on the rare moments when you feel like doing the work. It is built on the days you do the work, especially when you don't feel like it, because that is when discipline speaks louder than motivation. Think about the athletes who rise before dawn to train when the rest of the world is still asleep. Do you think they feel motivated every single morning? Do you think their bodies don't ache? Their minds don't want to roll over and rest? Of course they do, but they understand that if they only acted on motivation, they would be inconsistent, and inconsistency kills potential. What sustains them is discipline, the habit that says no matter how I feel, no matter how tired I am, no matter if I'm excited or discouraged, I will do what must be done because discipline is a decision, not an emotion. And every day that decision is either strengthened or weakened by the choices you make. Motivation makes you start, but discipline makes you finish. Motivation gives you energy for a moment, but discipline creates results that last. And the reason so many people fall short of their dreams is not because they lacked motivation at some point. It's because they never built discipline into their daily lives. They believed they could chase feelings instead of forming habits, but habits are what transform your identity. Habits are what turn a dreamer into a doer, and habits are only built through discipline, repetition, and consistency, not through waiting for another motivational video, another speech, another external push. The danger of relying on motivation is that it creates a dependency. It makes you feel like you constantly need something outside of yourself to move forward. But true strength is when you can keep moving with nothing but your own inner standard. True strength is when you can push through even when your environment gives you no encouragement. True strength is when you've trained your mind to obey your goals, not your feelings. And that obedience is what discipline looks like in action. It is the inner voice that says, I will not quit just because I don't feel like continuing. I will not stop because the excitement is gone. I will not surrender to comfort because my purpose demands more of me. Think about your own life for a moment. Think about the times you started something with energy. Maybe it was a new workout plan. Maybe it was studying for a new skill. Maybe it was building a project. In the beginning, you were motivated. You were excited. You told yourself this time it's going to be different. But then the days stacked up, the excitement faded, and you found yourself drifting back into old habits. Why? Not because the dream wasn't real. Not because you didn't want it, but because you never switched from motivation to discipline. You never made the shift from being driven by a feeling to being anchored by a system. And that is the gap between those who quit and those who finish. Discipline is like a muscle. It grows when you use it. It gets stronger every time you say no to the easy road and yes to the hard road. Every time you resist the temptation to slack off. Every time you keep your promise to yourself, your discipline grows. And the more it grows, the less you need to rely on motivation. Because now you've built momentum. Now you've created a lifestyle where doing the hard thing becomes natural. Now you've hardened your mind against excuses. And that is why disciplined people look unshakable. It's not that they are always motivated. It's that they've trained themselves to act regardless of motivation. This is what separates champions from spectators. This is what separates those who talk about goals from those who achieve them. Discipline does not need applause. It does not need recognition. It thrives in silence. It thrives in the lonely hours when no one is watching, when no one will clap for you, when no one will congratulate you. Discipline is forged in those hours. And those hours are what eventually show in public when results appear. Because people will see the achievement, but they will never see the thousands of disciplined moments that built it. They will call it talent. They will call it luck. But it was discipline all along. Motivation will give you a spark, but discipline is the fuel that keeps the fire alive long after the spark is gone. And if you want to build something that lasts, if you want to reach a level that others cannot reach, you must understand that motivation may get you out of bed, but discipline is what keeps you moving day after day, week after week, year after year. It is not glamorous. It is not always exciting, but it is what builds legacies. And those legacies are what prove that discipline will always sustain where motivation fades. Pain fuels growth more than comfort ever will. And yet most people spend their lives running from pain, avoiding discomfort, searching for shortcuts, and clinging to the illusion that an easy life is a good life. But the truth is, every person you admire, every success story that inspires you, every breakthrough you've ever heard of was born from a season of pain. Because pain is not just an obstacle. Pain is a teacher. Pain is a forge. Pain is the fire that burns away weakness, that strips off the unnecessary, that leaves behind the strongest version of who you are. And while comfort feels good in the moment, comfort never shapes you, comfort never stretches you. Comfort keeps you the same, but pain pushes you to evolve into something greater than you ever thought possible. When you look at the strongest athletes, the most disciplined entrepreneurs, the most resilient leaders, they didn't get there because life handed them comfort. They got there because they walked through storms. They got there because they endured setbacks. They got there because pain tested them, broke them down, and demanded that they rebuild themselves stronger. And it is in that rebuilding that growth is found. It is in the long nights of failure, in the lonely hours of doubt, in the moments where quitting seems easier than pushing forward, that you discover who you really are. Because pain forces you to confront yourself. Pain exposes your limits and then dares you to go beyond them. Think about the gym for a moment. Your muscles don't grow when you lift a weight that's easy. They grow when you lift something heavy enough to tear the muscle fibers. The tiny tears heal stronger. The body adapts and strength is built. The pain you feel in the gym is the signal that growth is happening, and life works in the same way. Every challenge that hurts, every disappointment that cuts, every rejection that stings is tearing at you. But those tears are not destruction. They are construction. They are the necessary breaking so that you can be rebuilt with more strength, more wisdom, more resilience, because without pain, there is no reason to adapt. Without pain, there is no pressure to grow. The reason so many people stay average is because they avoid pain. They want the results without the struggle. They want success without sacrifice. They want transformation without tears. But life does not work that way. Comfort feels safe, but comfort is a prison. It traps you in routines that never stretch you. It lulls you into thinking you're doing fine, but deep down, you know you're not growing. Deep down, you know you're just maintaining, and maintenance never changes a life. Only pain has the power to break patterns and force you to reinvent yourself. Only pain has the power to make you hungry enough to fight for more. The greatest breakthroughs in history came through pain. Nations were built through sacrifice. Inventions were born through frustration. Movements were sparked through oppression. And individuals found greatness because their pain forced them to rise. Think about someone who lost everything and started over. Think about someone who failed again until success finally broke through. Think about someone who was told they weren't good enough and used that pain as fuel to prove everyone wrong. That fire doesn't come from comfort. It comes from pain. It comes from rejection. It comes from disappointment. It comes from wounds that could have ended them, but instead woke them up. Pain builds character in a way nothing else can, because when life is easy, you don't learn perseverance, you don't learn patience, you don't learn how to fight. But when pain comes, it tests your values. It shows you what really matters. It strips away your excuses. It forces you to dig deep into reserves of strength you didn't even know you had. And once you've gone through pain and survived, you become unshakable because now you know you can endure. Now you know you are stronger than you thought. And that knowledge is what gives you confidence to face the next challenge, the next mountain, the next storm, and keep going. Comfort whispers lies to you. It tells you that staying the same is good enough. It tells you that you don't need to push harder. It tells you that you can just coast and somehow still achieve greatness. But greatness never comes from comfort. Greatness always has a price, and that price is pain. It is sacrifice. It is long hours. It is sleepless nights. It is the discomfort of discipline. It is the sting of criticism. It is the loneliness of walking a path most people are too afraid to walk. But that pain is not your enemy. That pain is your ally, because every ounce of pain you endure is shaping you into someone capable of holding the weight of success. When it finally comes, pain also humbles you. It reminds you that you are not invincible, that you are human, that you have limits. And it is in acknowledging those limits that you find the courage to push them. Pain gives you empathy because when you've suffered, you understand the struggles of others. Pain gives you wisdom because when you've failed, you learn lessons success could never teach. Pain gives you hunger because when you've been without, you value what you have so much more deeply. And it is this combination of humility, empathy, wisdom, and hunger that creates leaders who can inspire others, because people don't connect with comfort. They connect with scars. They connect with someone who has suffered and survived. When you run from pain, you run from growth. And that is why the majority stays stuck. But when you face pain, when you embrace it, when you use it as fuel, you transform into someone who cannot be stopped, because the worst thing that could happen to you has already happened. And you endured it. And that endurance becomes your edge. It becomes your weapon. It becomes your source of relentless drive, because you realize pain didn't destroy you. It built you. And if pain built you once, it will build you again, every time stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable. The truth is, comfort will never demand your best, but pain always will. And if you want to become the best version of yourself, if you want to rise to heights most people never reach, you must be willing to endure what most people run from. You must be willing to see pain not as a punishment, but as preparation, not as an obstacle, but as opportunity. Because it is in the furnace of pain that greatness is forged. And while comfort may offer you temporary ease, pain will offer you permanent growth. Motivation is personal, not external. And that truth is often ignored in a world that constantly tries to sell you motivation as if it's something you can buy, something someone else can hand to you, something that can be injected into your spirit from outside sources. But the reality is, no matter how many motivational speeches you listen to, no matter how many quotes you post on your wall, no matter how many people cheer you on, if you don't find the reason within yourself to keep moving, all that external noise will eventually fade away and leave you exactly where you started. Because true motivation is not something that comes from outside. It's born inside, and it's born out of your why, your hunger, your purpose, your decision to push forward regardless of who is watching or who is clapping. Every person has their own story, their own battles, their own scars. And that means every person must find their own personal source of motivation, because what fuels one person won't necessarily fuel another. Someone may be motivated by proving their doubters wrong. Another may be motivated by taking care of their family. Another by escaping the pain of their past. Another by a burning dream of creating something that lasts beyond them. But the common thread is this: it has to be personal. It has to be real. It has to come from a place inside you that cannot be shaken by circumstance or by someone else's opinion. Because if your motivation depends on the outside world will always find a way to take it from you. External motivation is temporary. It gives you a rush. It excites you for a moment. It may even get you to start, but it cannot sustain you in the dark hours. It cannot carry you through the nights when no one is clapping. It cannot help you with isolated, rejected, or forgotten. Because the truth is, no one else can want it for you more than you want it for yourself. No one else can carry the weight of your dreams. No one else can push your body when it aches. No one else can silence your excuses when your mind screams at you to quit. Only you can do that, and you will only do it if your motivation is rooted deep within you, tied to something so personal, so meaningful, that walking away would feel like betrayal of who you are. Think about people who rely solely on coaches, teachers, or mentors for their drive. They may perform well when that external pressure is present, but the moment it is removed, their effort drops, their consistency disappears, and they prove that their foundation was never personal. It was borrowed, and borrowed motivation always runs out. But when motivation is personal, it becomes unstoppable because it is self-generated. It does not need constant reminders. It does not require outside validation. It becomes a fire that burns even when the world is cold, even when no one believes in you, even when the odds are stacked against you, because it is not tied to approval. It is tied to your identity, your values, and your purpose. When you understand that motivation is personal, you stop chasing other people's paths. You stop comparing your journey to theirs. You stop thinking you need their applause to keep going. And you start building your drive on what matters most to you. And that shift is powerful because it gives you freedom. The freedom to pursue a dream that aligns with your soul instead of trying to copy someone else's version of success. The freedom to wake up and push forward without waiting for inspiration to strike. The freedom to know that even if everyone turned their back on you, your reason would still be enough to move you forward. This is why so many people quit, not because they lack ability, not because they lack opportunity, but because their motivation was never personal. It was borrowed from someone else's energy. They were doing it to please others, to impress others, to prove something to the world. And when the applause faded, so did their effort. But those who endure, those who achieve at the highest level, are those who found a reason within themselves that no one could take away. And that reason keeps them steady even in the face of failure, rejection, or ridicule. Because when motivation is personal, it does not need to be loud. It does not need constant fuel. It becomes quiet and relentless. Like a drumbeat in your chest that never stops. Ask yourself why you want what you say you want. Ask yourself what it really means to you. Ask yourself what you're willing to sacrifice for it. Because until you know your why, until you own it, until it becomes so personal that quitting would feel like betraying your soul, you will always depend on outside sources. And outside sources will always let you down. The strongest motivation is when you decide, this is mine, this is my dream, this is my fight, this is my responsibility, and no one else can take it from me. The world will tell you that motivation is about energy, hype, and excitement. But the reality is it is about alignment. It is about aligning your actions with your deepest values, your deepest desires, your deepest reasons. Because when your why is strong enough, discipline becomes easier, sacrifices make sense, pain becomes bearable, setbacks become lessons, and nothing can stop you from moving forward. But if your why is shallow, if your why is borrowed, if your why is external, then every obstacle will feel like a reason to quit. Every hardship will feel like proof that you don't belong. And every setback will drain you of the little borrowed motivation you had. When motivation is personal, it transforms how you view challenges. Because now you're not working just to look good. You're not working just for recognition. You're working for something that lives deep inside of you, something that matters more than comfort, more than opinion, more than fear. And that makes you dangerous because nothing outside of you can control you anymore. Not criticism, not rejection, not even failure, because you've built a source of motivation that does not depend on the world. It depends on you. And as long as you're breathing, that fire cannot go out. Motivation is personal, not external. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you stop waiting for permission, the sooner you stop chasing validation, the sooner you stop relying on others to push you, and you begin to generate your own energy, your own drive, your own relentless pursuit of what matters most. And that is where true power lies, in the decision to own your motivation, to make it yours, and to never give it away to anything or anyone outside of you. Success demands sacrifice beyond what you expect. And that truth is what separates the dreamers from the doers, the ones who talk about what they want from the ones who actually go out and earn it. Because the cost of success is always higher than the price you imagine. When you first set out on the journey, people picture the glory, the rewards, the applause, the wealth, the recognition. But what they rarely consider is the sleepless nights, the loneliness, the exhaustion, the constant battles with doubt, the missed moments with friends and family, the countless times you'll have to choose between what feels good now and what will matter later. And it is in those choices that success demands more than most people are willing to give. When you begin chasing a dream, it's easy to underestimate the sacrifice required. You think working a little harder will be enough. You think showing up when you feel like it will carry you through. But the deeper you go into the pursuit of greatness, the more you realize the world doesn't hand out rewards for half effort. The more you realize that success is like a mountain with a never-ending climb. And only those who are willing to bleed, sweat, and endure at levels most people refuse to even consider ever get to taste what it feels like to reach the top. And even then, the top itself demands that you keep sacrificing if you want to stay there. Because success is not a destination, it is a constant demand. Look at the athletes who dominate their sports. Their talent is only part of the story. Behind the scenes, they've given up nights out, junk food, comfort, vacations, and normal routines that others take for granted. They've put their bodies through pain most people would run from. They've said no to the distractions that everyone else indulges in. And they've accepted a life of sacrifice because they understand that success doesn't reward the casual. It rewards the committed. And that commitment is proven by what you're willing to give up. Not just by what you say you want, but by what you're willing to lose in order to gain something greater. Sacrifice is the currency of success. And the higher the level of success you want, the more of that currency you will have to spend. You'll have to sacrifice your comfort. Because comfort makes you soft, you'll have to sacrifice your excuses. Because excuses keep you stuck. You'll have to sacrifice relationships that no longer align with your purpose, because not everyone is meant to go where you are going. You'll have to sacrifice temporary pleasures because chasing them will rob you of long-term fulfillment. And you'll have to sacrifice the version of yourself that is addicted to easy, because success demands a version of you that is forged in discipline, resilience, and hunger. The hardest part is that success will always demand more than you expect at first. You've already given enough. You'll think you've already worked hard. You'll think you've already paid the price. And then life will test you again. It will take you to the breaking point. It will strip you down to see if you really mean it. And most people quit at that point, not because they lacked talent, not because they lacked opportunity, but because they weren't willing to sacrifice beyond what felt fair. But fairness has nothing to do with success. Fairness is a comfort word. The reality is success doesn't care how much you've already given. It asks for more and then more again until you either quit or prove that you're willing to give everything it takes. This is why people often envy success, but rarely understand it. They see the rewards, but not the cost. This is see the results, but not the sacrifices made in silence. They see the stage, but not the lonely nights behind it. They see the trophies, but not the hours of pain. They see the victory, but not the battles lost along the way. And because they don't see the sacrifice, they assume success must have been easier for others. But that's the illusion. Success is never easy. Success is never free. Success is never given. It is taken by those who are willing to sacrifice more than the rest. Sacrifice also teaches you discipline at the deepest level. Because every time you give something up for the sake of your vision, you strengthen your commitment to that vision. You remind yourself that your dream matters more than temporary ease. And that reinforcement builds a mindset that cannot be shaken. Sacrifice becomes proof to yourself that you are serious, proof that you are invested, proof that you are not just another person wishing, this is my last one, but someone working, someone proving with action that they are willing to pay the price others won't pay. The reality is that if you want balance, comfort, and constant ease, you will never experience extraordinary success, because extraordinary success is unbalanced by nature. It requires obsession. It requires focus. It requires pouring more of yourself into one pursuit than most people would ever consider healthy. It requires giving more hours, more energy, more heart, more resilience. And in return, it gives you what average effort could never buy. But the cost will always be greater than you thought at the start. And that's why only the few who are prepared to sacrifice beyond expectation ever truly make it. And even when you reach levels of success that others admire, the sacrifice doesn't end. It only changes, because maintaining greatness requires as much sacrifice as building it, if not more. You'll sacrifice rest to stay sharp. You'll sacrifice pride to stay humble and keep learning. You'll sacrifice the comfort of thinking you've arrived, because the moment you think you've arrived, the hunger that built you fades, and others who are hungrier will take your place. Success doesn't reward those who stop sacrificing. It replaces them with those who still are. This is why success is not for everyone. Not because everyone lacks the ability, but because not everyone is willing to pay the price. Not everyone is willing to sacrifice friendships, entertainment, comfort, recognition, and sometimes even parts of themselves to reach a level others only dream of. But those who do, those who are willing to go beyond what is expected, beyond what is comfortable, beyond what seems reasonable, they discover that sacrifice is not just the cost of success. It is the shaping tool of success. It doesn't just get you to the goal, it makes you into the kind of person who can hold it, manage it, and grow it without losing it. So when you think about your dreams, when you imagine the life you want, when you set goals that seem impossible, understand that you are also choosing the sacrifices that come with them. Understand that for everything you want to gain, there is something you will have to give up. And the bigger the gain, the greater the sacrifice, because success demands more than you expect, always more. And the question is never whether the dream is possible. The question is always whether you are willing to sacrifice enough to make it real